This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 523 for the week of June 1st, 2025. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Kanzenshuu, the podcast, an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site, Kanzenshuu. We cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of entertaining. Welcome back to you. My name is Mike. You may see me around as Vegito EX. Mike is just fine, though. And I am the host of this here podcast, which, if you haven't been able to guess over the last several weeks, if not decades, an excuse to talk with my friends. This episode on the podcast, I'm chatting with our good buddy Zénpai from Portugal. Zénpai is a contributor to Kanzenshuu, has translated many things, helped research and assistance and the aforementioned translations. He also happens to be the official translator for the Dragon Ball manga in Portugal now. That is one of the most exciting things. It's the closest you can get to a Kanzenshuu release of the manga. Very exciting. I am chatting with Zénpai this episode about how that happened. How he came to be the official translator for Dragon Ball over there in Portugal. I believe we said it's the third manga release of Dragon Ball there. It's a completely wholly new from scratch translation, not a retranslation from a different languages translation from the ground up from Japanese. That is so exciting. So we'll chat a lot about that, his process, some examples, some of the reaction to it over there. Just a great conversation. And if you're a listener of, let's say, fellow companion shows out there, you'll want to stay tuned to the end of our chat there with Zénpai. That said, I say we just get right on into it. Mike and Zénpai chatting up the official manga release in Portugal. I will see you on the flip side to wrap up the episode. Away we go. Joining me after, as we're recording here, almost 4 years to the day since we recorded. And what a journey you've had since then. It's our buddy Zénpai.
Hello.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining me from Portugal. Can I come live there, please? I need to escape.
Sure, I have an extra room. I'm actually sitting on it right now.
Okay, I'll be right there.
I can guarantee you it's a lot less crazy in here.
Yeah, looks beautiful. I'll be right there. Hey, buddy, it's been a while since you've been on the show here, and you've got so much more to talk about and share. Last time we talked back in 2021, it was kind of like, hey, what's your history with the series? What was fandom like for you in Portugal? What were the releases like over there? And it was almost an interview from like a Kanzenshuu contributor perspective where you've been translating articles and interviews and stuff for the site. So it's kind of like that holistic perspective. Would you like to share what it is you're doing now for folks who don't know?
So, I'm going to start from the beginning because it's funnier now.
Okay, do it.
So, about roughly 1 year after we last talked, I was actually doing this. I do have a Japanese student, so she studies with me. And then I was saying, well, I should study Japanese even more so that I can send my CV to Viz so that I can maybe translate the manga for the American market because it's so big. And then she said something that completely changed my career in a very short time. She said, why don't you apply to a domestic manga translation company in the meantime? And it was really weird because actually I can do that. So I just grabbed their emails and I asked them, wait, do you actually need a Japanese translator? Because I can work as a Japanese translator for you. And they just said, yeah, we were actually right in the middle of wondering if we could get a new Japanese translator. Here, do this test. And I did the test and I got the job. And originally I was about to get One Piece, which would be work for many, many, many years.
Yeah, that's a dream job in and of itself right there. And yeah, almost job security to a degree too. Like as long as you're doing well and it's still got you're good for a while there.
Exactly. And well, since it was the first time I was actually translating in a commercial manner, they thought it's like, well, maybe not. Let's not give you the big one right out of the
Don't
gate.
give the big one to the newbie guy. I get it. Yeah.
Exactly. So they gave it to one of their other translators who was more senior than me, and I had been working with them from the very beginning of the creation of the company. And so they gave me Tokyo Ghoul Re to do. Okay. And I'm sorry for what I'm about to say to all of the Tokyo Ghoul fans, but my publishing company has a lot, and I mean a lot of series that I like. They gave me the one I didn't. But well, I mean, it was good training, and I obviously did my job as professionally as I could. And then I got like a few one-shots here and there. I got to do Death Note short stories. Well, I am a big Death Note fan, so that was certainly an improvement in terms of job, of being happy with it. And then I got to do Look Back, which I had no idea if I even liked it or not, but it's like nice story, pretty cute. But I have moved recently to a new house, which I'm setting in right now. And I had to buy a new car, and salaries don't really go as much as they used to. So Tokyo Ghoul only had a few volumes left to go. I actually got into the series in the middle of Re, which is already the sequel, and I kept on doing volumes. And I called my editor to say, it's like, can you please give me a new series, because I can see the end of this one in the horizon, and I need a new one. And she told me, don't worry, we'll get you something. And I think I noticed like a little bit of playfulness in her voice, but she just said this, we'll give you something. And then a few months later, she told me, well, it's not like we don't trust you or anything, but please go sign this NDA. And then it's like, what are they giving me? Because I've talked to my editor a few times throughout our working relationship for the last year. And every time I talked to her, I realized that there was a really huge gaping hole in their lineup, because they had Naruto, they had One Piece. Well, they actually don't have Bleach, but I mean, I have priorities. So every time I talked to my editor, I kept telling her, if you ever have Dragon Ball, please give it to me. And the only thing she ever said is, we don't have plans for Dragon Ball right now, but rest assured, if we ever have Dragon Ball, it's yours. It's like, okay. But I didn't care. Every time I talked to her, I told her, if you have Dragon Ball, give it to me. And I told her 4 total times. And then she tells me to go sign an NDA. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, so like thoughts flying. It's like, okay, let me just think about the crazy new series that are out there right now. There could be Frieren. Yeah. There could be Oshinoko, which they actually published. I'm not translating it, but they actually did publish that one, and Frieren as well. There's like Kaiju number 8. There's Undead Unluck. So I thoughts were racing. It's like, well, they could be Bleach actually, because they had Naruto, they had One Piece. They could be Bleach, but then it's like always that thought in my head. Oh my God. It might be Dragon Ball, but I didn't want to, get too hopeful and then just have a massive letdown. So I don't even actually have a printer in my home, so I had to go to the nearest copy shop, print it, sign it, scan it, and then send it to my editor. It's like, okay, I did the thing. Now please tell me what the series is. And he said, oh, thank you. We will be in touch shortly. And it's like, God damn it. Tell me the thing. And like 2 weeks later, she calls me up. She rarely ever calls me. Normally, I'm the one calling her. And then she calls me and said, okay, now I think we're on the good track here, so I can tell you. The series you're about to translate is Dragon Ball. And now I swear to God, this is what I did. Okay, just hold on a second, please, if you will. So I put the phone down. I screamed at the top of my lungs, put it back on, and say, okay, sorry about that. You can please go on. So it was like, I still remember the day. This was December 20th. So I said, what a great Christmas present for me. It's like, and this series, we've had 3 different publishing houses taking care of Dragon Ball.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Can you give us a quick recap of what Dragon Ball's, at least the manga release, had been like in Portugal?
So we had the first go at it by publishing house Planeta de Agostini.
Yeah, sure.
And it was not the best. It was indirectly translated from Spanish.
Okay. Yeah.
And even then, it was really, really, really shoddy job. Like, you can tell that the people doing it just did not care. They grabbed the easiest language to translate from, because Portuguese and Spanish are very similar. Yeah. And they just tried to get it out as fast as they could. And it was like, it was not the best. The lettering was horrible. The paper was horrible. It's like, imagine how bad the paper has to be that each volume was half the thickness of a Viz volume.
Oh, interesting. Sure. Yeah.
So a few years later, like exactly 11 years later, we had another publishing house called Asa. And this one physically was beautiful. It's like, it's better than the American edition. It's better than the Japanese edition. It was beautiful. Beautiful cover, beautiful paper, beautiful printing, beautiful everything. But obviously, there comes a but. First one, it was translated indirectly from the Viz edition, which the problems it has.
Yep.
And it never got past volume 18. Actually, I think I can say this because my editor herself was saying it on public last time I saw her, so it's this is fine. Apparently, the reason they were taking so long to license it again, because apparently they've been wanting to license Dragon Ball for quite a long time, it's because they had already licensed it not that long ago. But they finally got the rights, and I thankfully got to work on that publishing house just in time for me to be the one doing it.
Wow. Just kind of serendipitous all around. That's great. I have so many follow-up questions for you on this. Depending on when this is released and when this is coming out, you're actually kind of either in the middle of or following a bunch of other interviews we're doing right now. On the podcast, you'll have heard from Brandon Bovia. That I know that episode's already out because I'm recording the week that episode came out. Letterer on Viz's edition of the Dragon Ball Super manga. Separately, at some point on the podcast, you're going to hear from David Evelyn, who translated the upcoming English language release of Dr. Mashirito's Ultimate Manga Technique. So we've got a little bit of the American side of like lettering and translation. So some of the questions I'm going to have for you are similar to those, but I'm really curious from the Portuguese perspective, I guess Portuguese perspective,
yeah, exactly,
as opposed to Brazilian. Some of the things here, like a test. Yeah. Tell me about the translation test that you had to do with your current publisher. Like, what did you get? What was it like? Maybe you can't tell us what you got, but what was the process like? You tell me.
I mean, it was really simple. They just gave me a few pages of manga and said, translate this just so we can see what we can do. Because I think it was the current volume of Naruto they were handling at the time. And I know their translator. I know that she's really competent. Yeah. So they probably just thought about, let's see how his translation compares to hers, just to see if it's good enough.
Yeah.
It was really easy, really, really fast.
Good. Especially today, they want to weed out anyone who's trying to weasel their way in with like machine translation or something like that. So
exactly.
We can certainly talk about that at some point, particularly in contrast with the American jobs. Can you tell me what your job is? Is it a full-time job? Is it a contract job? How does your job work?
It's freelance.
It is.
So yeah. I basically, whenever I get an order from my publisher, she just says, translate this series. Yeah. I never actually got told translate this series up until this point. She just says, translate this series. Whenever you finish, we'll give you more. So far, I'm just doing Dragon Ball and I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Then again, I'm kind of speeding through it, not because I want to get it over with or anything. It's just like, well, I know the series by heart, so it's fine.
Sure.
So I can.
Yeah.
Even then, there's a lot of things that surprise me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things
We'll get to that because
okay.
I definitely want to dive into that. But you said something really interesting, which was working on a series that you didn't like. So before we get to Dragon Ball, tell me what it's like translating a series you do not actually like.
I mean, it's kind of, how can I say this? I do enjoy the artwork, and I do enjoy the art of comic books themselves. I just don't really find the story interesting personally. I think, not to mention, whenever the authors try to get a little bit too creative with the way they display panels on the sheet, it gets really hard to describe it on a Word document. So it's like, oh my God, I'm never getting out of here. It's like, I think there was this one page which had just one illustration. It was a full page illustration, but had like 30 different speech bubbles. And it's like, oh my God, how do I actually tell the letterer which one is this specific translation? Whereas with Dragon Ball, there's barely any of that. It's like super clean, super easy. And most of the series I do work on are super easy and clean. Death Note was fine. Look Back barely had anything to translate. It was actually super small. I finished it in like 10 days or something. But Tokyo Ghoul, the Ishida Sui, he has a very creative way of doing manga, and it's not really my cup of tea, but I know what it's like to be able to enjoy a series this much, and I know I want to do my best to deliver to Portuguese fans what they want, and I do know a few Portuguese Tokyo Ghoul fans, and I even actually resorted to the Kanzenshuu Discord once because I didn't quite have an idea of something, so I resorted to someone more knowledgeable than me, and they actually helped me out because, of course, even if I personally don't quite like the series, I also want to, do the best I can for the people that do.
Yeah. What, again, ignoring Dragon Ball. So you get something like that, as opposed to Dragon Ball, where you kind of know everything. Or if you have a question, I mean, you have, a team of experts at your beck and call that you can get anything you need. So yeah, you're working on something like that. Is it, and you either don't know what they mean or don't have like the greatest idea of how you want to translate something? Like, what's your research process like when you're working on that kind of different series?
Well, first of all, you need to do a little bit of studying. So I actually read all of the previous volumes of the manga just to, get up to speed.
Oh, right. Because you came in midway through this one. So yeah, you.
Exactly.
So there's like style guide stuff that like independent of. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Exactly. I actually, when I started, I actually got a complete series glossary, so I could check out how the previous translator had gone about translating some stuff. And then, you do have wikis for Tokyo Ghoul, and you can actually search for forums on Reddit whenever you don't know anything. But from the moment you have a wiki at your disposal and you know how to, I don't know this stuff, space Reddit, you can pretty much get anywhere you want. But whenever things got really, really dicey, I just asked one of the people that knew more about the series than I did. And then I was sure I was making a good job.
Do you find that you do more of your research in English than in Portuguese?
Oh, no, for sure. There's not even 1/10 of 1% of the resources in Portuguese that there are in English.
Let's just talk about Dragon Ball. That's what people want to talk about. My first question for you in translating Dragon Ball is, what have you learned? Yeah, longtime fan, read the series in Japanese, probably even in English. You've looked at previous Portuguese versions of it. So just like in Dragon Ball holistically, like, what did you learn?
Well, there are some touches I hadn't quite noticed before. For example, when Goku and Tenshinhan first met, Goku, for some reason, refers to Tenshinhan as Ten-san, almost as if he's mimicking Chaozu. And there are actually, that's a famous scene in Battle of Gods where Goku tries to speak polite Japanese, but he is absolutely horrible about it. There are actually like 1 or 2 instances of him doing that across the manga, and it's like, never actually noticed this. So I actually, whenever those parts come up, I actually put a note to my proofreader, who's also my editor, and I tell him, in this specific part, Goku is unusually speaking very politely. So I put all of these just so he won't have any doubt. No, I totally know what I'm doing. Just please stick with it, okay? Whenever things go a little bit stranger.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was I actually never read a single version of the manga that had the chapter title pages with the original blurbs still in there. Because I read the first edition of the Portuguese manga 5 times, and I read the Japanese version of the manga 1 time, but it was a full color edition, which didn't have all the chapter title pages, let alone the blurbs.
Yeah.
Because the Kanzenshuu version doesn't have the blurbs, and the full color version is based on it, and it doesn't even have all of them. But when you're translating from the original Japanese tankobon, it's all there. And there were things I never even noticed. Like, for example, I knew that the scene in volume 18 was coming up. So with all of the puns with Kaio-sama.
Yes.
So I actually had those prepared 1 year in advance.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Some of them I had to really stretch it a little bit because they're also visual, like the part where he scratches himself. So I had to do something with it. The part where he grabs the phone, it's like you just grab one of those phone pranks. It's like, it's fine. I also had to be a little bit creative for the futonga futonda.
Sure, yep.
I had to be a little bit creative. But then I get to the part with the chapter where the chapter title pages are all together in the end of the volume.
Yes.
And it's like, there are more puns in there I had no idea about. It's like, how do I go about this?
Yeah, you think you're done. You get to the end.
Yeah.
Well, that actually makes me think. So what are you getting? Like, what do you actually have in hand that you're translating? Are you simply getting the 42 volume tankobon in Japanese? That is your reference material? Or do you get any kinds of digital files or anything?
No, it's a little bit strange. I don't know how it is, for example, in America or any other country. But the only resources we ever get is the original volumes in paper, not even digitally, in paper, and a glossary if I'm not the first one to actually handle the series. Dragon Ball, I started from the beginning, so I did the glossary. Apparently my proofreader likes it a lot because I write a lot in there.
Yeah.
And for Death Note, that was apparently the first series they ever did, so they hadn't quite figured out the whole process, so they didn't even have a glossary, thankfully for them. I actually know a lot about Death Note. I know where to search if I needed to, so it was fine.
Yeah.
Tokyo Ghoul, they did have a glossary, but I had to do a little bit more research. That's the one I did the most research, apart from Dragon Ball, of course. And yeah, basically the only thing they give us is just the volume. They're basically relying on our expertise and our, love for the series and our professionalism.
Got it. And then it's up to them, whoever's working on the digital files to then produce. Okay. Couple sub questions in there then. And I asked this to the folks doing the English language releases. What is your work process like where it's talking to the editor? Do you have direct contact with the letterer working on it? Just tell me about the whole workflow.
So basically, I do get sent the volumes in the mail, which is nice because I didn't have the original Japanese tankobon volumes. I only had the full colors, so that's also a nice plus for me.
Nice benefit.
So I look at them, see the pages, and I translate them. I need to be really precise where I put the translation. So it's like, this is panel 1, bubble number 1, and then the translation, and then page number 3, panel number 1. Bubble number 3, and stuff like that. So this is the first part of the process, just translating the thing. After that, the process has changed a little bit because we had a meeting between all of the translators and the editors last year. Actually, we're going to have one next Thursday. And the process changed a little bit, so we're now more involved with each other. I mean, we contact a lot more with each other. And I've been very blessed that my editor and proofreader is also a massive fan of the series. And we also see eye to eye in the way that we want to make a faithful translation. We don't want to insert none of the dub terms, and the Portuguese dub has a very, very big following in here. But it's like, okay, you had the dub, you had the other 2 versions. Now it's time for a faithful version for those that want it.
Was it jewels from the dub? Is that the phrase?
Jewels, yes. We had the jewels. Because you know how Dragon Ball Z Abridged is a parody of Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
Basically, our dub got to do it and pass it off as the actual dub of the series. But it's bordering on a parody.
Right.
And they actually have a lot of compilations of those jewels on YouTube. And there are some people that wanted me to preserve those things, but thankfully there are just as many people as like, no, dude, you're doing okay. You're preserving the series as it should be. Thank God, because I actually I set out to make the most definitive edition possible.
Yeah. So tell me about the feedback. Actually, before we get that, how far into it are you? I guess. All right. Like 3 questions leading up to that question. You're putting it out in 2-in-1 volumes. Is that correct?
3-in-1.
3-in-1 volumes. Okay. So it's similar to like the Visbig or the whatever. What size is it? Is it tankobon size or is it some other larger format?
Basically tankobon size, but just 3 times as thick.
Got it. Okay. So that's how it's coming out. Where are you up to right now in the release?
So we just got the second 3-in-1 volume last month. So we're up to volume 6. Volume 6 finishes when they're about to enter the pirate cave.
Okay, so then my ultimate question there was, tell me about the feedback. Tell me about the feedback from the editorial team, the owners of the company, and then tell me about the feedback from the fans in Portugal.
So there's fans. It's been divisive.
Yeah.
So because as I told you, there were fans that wanted something more closer to the dub with the original terms. Because just to give you an example, the Turtle Hermit was actually the Genius Turtle here in Portugal, which is a holdover from the French dub, because even our dub was indirectly translated. So it was the indirectly translated from the French dub, which is also not very good. And some people wanted to preserve that, but from what I've been seeing, people have really been enjoying it. It's apparently been selling very well. I actually have a lot of cases where it's been sold out in a lot of bookstores. And yeah, a lot of people have been rejoicing that we finally have a faithful version of the series so that they can have the definitive edition. But of course, there's always people that wanted something a little bit different. They actually wanted to preserve all of the things. For example, one other example, Piccolo in our dub was actually called Satan's Little Heart. And some people actually wanted to preserve that.
Yeah.
Which, some people will disagree with me, but all I have to say is, hell no. But yeah, from what I've been seeing, the reception has been positive. It was a little bit strange, but there was this one instance where I got a little bit liberal, because it was still in the part of the series where it was more comedy, and it was, you remember that musical number that Jackie Chun did just before his battle with Kuririn? So basically, I was translating it like super faithfully, and then I realized that it was really, the lyrics were really, really close to a very popular Portuguese song, sung by a popular Portuguese singer. And I was like, well, it is a musical number. It's not all that different. So it's like, I just went all the way and I made a full reference to the lyrics of the song. And it was really controversial, because some people just thought it was brilliant and they laughed their asses off. And some people were like, well, next time I do not expect to see this in my faithful translation. I hope you've given that translator a good telling off. And it was, controversial. I still stand by it just because it's a musical number where you're allowed to be a little bit more liberal, and it was supposed to be a dumb gag where you're allowed to be liberal. So, but yeah, at least now I know that there are people out there that really want it to be as faithful as possible, and that just warms my heart.
I guess I'm of 2 minds about that, because yeah, I'd be like, but that's not what it said, so don't say what it doesn't say. At the same time, like, you're also, part of translation is like the intent and the mood behind what's in there.
To be honest, it was like the one time I strayed the farthest away from the original, and even then, the meaning is still there. He's still saying everything that he's saying in the original. I just changed up the form a little bit. And the funny part is that it's not just one panel or one bubble where I did it, because the panel right next to it, there's another reference to another song, but it's a much older song that nobody got. So nobody got angry about that one.
Well, I'm angry about it on their behalf. So you have that. Tell me about, I know you're big on this. You mentioned it for your style guide and your notes for your editor and letterer. Tell me about your notes. What gets published alongside it? What all are you producing? I know you feel strongly about this.
The notes are not only a way for the readers to actually know more about the creation of the series, and I mean, if I studied it, you might as well also know about it. And it's also a way for me to protect myself, because if with the notes, I can actually show that I know where, for example, name puns come from, because I actually wanted to go even farther with the spellings of the names. For example, I actually wanted to write out Puar's name as Puar, like the T. And I wanted to write Krillin, because it's Krillin in the final version, as Kurilin, like Kuri Kuri, and then Kuri as in the chestnut, and then Lin as in Shaolin. But it was a little bit controversial, so we just went back to the standard Krillin. But at the very least, so the compromise I got was, okay, we're doing it this way, which is the more standard spelling, which is the one we see everywhere, but you can get to write the notes. So at least the readers can see that I know where it comes from, even if it's the spelling of the name doesn't quite reflect it. I think those are actually the only two ones where I was told to use the more standard international spelling, because other than that, I just wrote the spellings that I thought were best. Even like Rangfang, I actually wrote it as Lin Faun, like lingerie, foundation garments, Lin Faun, so it's fine.
So there have been some examples where you were overruled on in terms of spellings or something.
Exactly.
But it sounds pretty minimal overall.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can get to use those notes to show that, I know what I'm doing, but obviously when that's the thing. If you're doing a fan translation, you can just do whatever you want and nobody can tell you anything about it. Yeah. But whenever you're doing professional work for an editor, for a publishing house, you don't get final say. And even then I get more final say than most people do, even in that publishing house, because they see that I really, really, really cherish this series. Cherish this series. Yeah. They see that I really want it to be as best as possible. So I actually get two proofreading passes over the series. So one first preliminary proofreading before it gets to my editors, and one second proofreading just before it goes to the presses. So I'm actually one of the last people that actually sees it. Oh, and nice. I did get to, save a few parts here and there, just before it was too late. And I'm really happy about it. And I'm really happy with the way I'm working right now, because we've had some ups and downs in the middle of the process. But this second volume, the one that just is on store shelves right now, since March, I barely even had to correct anything, and everything I told them, it's like, well, maybe this isn't quite so good. Maybe you should change it to this. They corrected everything, so it's like I have absolutely no complaints, and I'm just really happy to see my baby out there for people to buy and to enjoy.
Yeah, tell me about the difference. You mentioned this between a fan translation, say you're doing something for Kanzenshuu, versus doing something officially like this. What are the differences and the similarities, actually?
Well, I don't actually have to contain myself all that much, but I consider myself to be like a very liberally faithful translator, as in the sense that I translate every single thing that is on the page, but I do try to write it in a way that it would sound natural for a native Portuguese speaker. So I don't quite pay as much attention to the form of what's in the original. I try to have every single drop of meaning that's in there, but in a way that would sound natural. But there are a few things. So incentivized not to use too many idioms because it could sound a little bit too oral. And
okay.
I'm also incentivized not to be too informal. They want to make something a little bit more that looks more legit. And if there are too many uses of informal phrasing, it could be seen as diminishing the seriousness of the publication. Even then, I do sometimes get away with some things. Sometimes I get to push the envelope a little bit, but up to a limit, because there are times where it's like, let's maybe calm it down. That's kind of a little bit of a shame because especially in the beginning, Dragon Ball is a little bit crazy it still has a lot of that Dr. Slump humor.
Yes.
But I do understand where they're coming from, so I try to be as informal as I can possibly be without pushing the envelope a little bit too much. And yeah, like no swearing whatsoever, because I actually, that's one of the major differences between Dragon Ball and, for example, Tokyo Ghoul. Because Dragon Ball is shonen, but Tokyo Ghoul was seinen. So I actually got away with swearing in Tokyo Ghoul, but not Dragon Ball. Even some things might be considered a little bit too crass for me to use, so I have to moderate the language. But other than that, I pretty much got to write pretty much the way I wanted. Even, for example, we were just saying that volumes 4, 5, and 6 just got on bookstores. And for example, since you know that General Blue has a little bit of that speech pattern where he talks with like a girl. So I tried to give him like a little bit of feminine tics. For example, whenever he uses a pronoun to refer to himself, I think it's just only once. I use the feminine version instead of the masculine version, and I try to make him like super, oh Jesus, you don't say, let's kill them all. It's a little bit hard to transpose this to English, but I think you got what I'm saying.
No, you conveyed it. Yeah, you got it. I was going to say, some of that sounds a little contradictory, where it's like, don't use idioms, but make it formal, but don't make it too informal, or either. It sounds like a lot to navigate. And also you mentioned you can't use any curse words. So it does sound like it's as faithful as you can possibly do, asterisk, with some of those caveats in there.
Well, that's the nature of the beast when you're doing professional work, because you're not 100% free to do whatever you want. I thought I was at the beginning, but then that was before I actually saw the pass that went to the editors. Yeah. And the editors, of course, they have a lot of experience, and they know what they want out of the series that they publish, and of course, they get final say. And sure. I'm actually very, very blessed that I even get as much say as I do. I believe you could even consider me like a third editor in the series, because I get to see the near final version just before it hits the presses. So whenever stuff gets a little bit too far away from the original, I can at least still say, like, I don't think you should be doing this because A, B, C, and D. Yeah. For example, I try to be really, really meticulous with the way I translate sentences that appear a lot. Like, for example, Goku's waku waku shite kitazo. Like, so I tried to translate it always in the same manner. Actually, the very last sentence I translated today was that one. And I just finished one volume. So I try to use like in English it's a little bit difficult to convey the names. Like, I'm really excited, but in a very informal way. They thought it was a little bit too informal. I was like, nah, I really want to get this done like with this specific phrasing, because I think it's the best way to convey both Goku's little bit childishness and his like intense enjoyment of fighting a stronger opponents.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I want to hear more about things that you've translated and learned and all that. But before we get to that, I want you to rank me as an editor compared to working with actual publications. How do I stack up?
So rank you as an editor.
How am I doing?
Regarding the translations.
Yeah. So, you give me a translation, you get questions back. I ask things, I change things. What's that like?
You're actually about the same as my actual editor, because I only ever hear back from you when you read something that you don't quite this doesn't quite make sense the way that it's phrased.
Yeah.
And it's about the same thing, because my actual the top editors, the editors in chief, don't actually talk to me all that much.
Yeah.
Unless there's something like, well, this is a little bit strange. I can give you an example.
Yeah.
For example, in Muscleville, in the Jingle Village, where there's Muscle Tower, the village chief is held as a captive. He's kidnapped. So I tried to domesticate the term village chief a little bit more, because village chief sounds a little bit Native American. Okay. So I tried to translate it as the mayor, which is a little bit, it's an adaptation. But, when it got to the air, like, well, it's not quite what it says in the original. It's like, well, it's not, it's an adaptation, but I mean, you can go with it more literal. It's like, I don't know, real skin off my back.
Sure.
And stuff like, and there's sometimes like small nuances. For example, this is all from the last volume that came out, but in volume 5, when the Goku and Jackie Chun originally get a draw in the finals, the announcer says you need to get up and say with a really big dumb smile, "Geez whiz, I won the tournament." Yeah. And because the original has a little bit of a playful, almost childish way of saying just, I won the tournament. But they looked at it as like, oh, well, this is kind of a little bit strange. So it was like, wow, maybe let's straighten this up a little bit. And I think these were the only 2 instances where I actually got pushback, let's call it like that, from the editors. But, it's generally like little things, like, for example, what I told you before about Kuririn, where, it's a big character, maybe let's use the international spelling, and, writing poor, like the actual T name is a little bit strange, and it's also kind of a very important recurring character. So it's like, maybe let's not go that far. But they generally don't really push me back on too many things, and they've been pushing back less and less. Yeah, and to be honest, I think you push back even less. I think there was that one time.
I'll ramp it up. I'll push back more.
I think there was that one time because I was phrasing it in a way that was a little bit too Portuguese, and it wasn't quite making a lot of sense to you. So I had to rewrite it a lot until we got it right. It
was like the immediate supervision, suspension, something like that.
Exactly. It was a little bit strange. Yeah. Not to toot my own horn, I do consider myself to be a pretty good English speaker, but I'm not an English native. So of course there's some stuff that falls through the cracks, and I'm of course not a native speaker. So obviously there's some things I don't quite understand as well as you do. So I actually appreciate that. Yeah. You don't really push me back on too many things. So all right. You're fine.
Again, I'll ramp it up. Just before we wrap up, tell me some more, just like stuff you've learned, cool little tidbits. I know the other day what came up was the Dogi design contest.
Yeah. I mean, because when that stuff appears in the tankobon, for example, like Goku actually saying, I don't actually remember the line, but I think like design a dogi for me or something like that.
Right.
I actually wanted to give context to the readers just so they wouldn't be reading it like, why does Goku want people to design a gi for him?
Yeah, because the splash text that accompanied it is gone, even though the drawing of Goku is still there saying that thing. Like all the text that goes along with like, here's what you need to do, here's where you need to send it, like all that stuff is gone. And the tankobon.
So that's one of the reasons I like to use notes, is when the context is gone, even from the original, I like to research it and put it back in for people to know about it, just so they won't be left hanging. And those are the kind of things that I like to do. And even then, I do believe I haven't read the second edition by Asa all too much, but I do believe this is the most faithful edition out of all three, just because it really includes everything. It includes the chapter title pages at the bottom. It includes all the blurbs, all of the splash text, everything. I still remember that I thought, well, I'm already at I think it was actually it was either in the volume that just came out or the volume that's about to come out, like the next one. And there was, it's one of the chapter title pages where there's Bulma and there's Kuririn and there's Goku in the pirate cave. And there was this context. And I was already at the chapter title page, which is the very last part of the volume. So it's like, well, it's a chapter title page collection. So it's like, I'll just, translate this real quick and I'll be done with the volume. And it's like, nope, like a contest, a list of rules for a contest in Jump. So people could earn like a telephone card.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I'm going to take forever just to translate this. I sometimes, whenever stuff like that comes up, it takes me like 1 hour just to translate one page.
Just like the blurb. Yeah. Because I'm sure you're like, all right, well, I got to go find the picture of what this telephone card ended up being, and I want to know exactly what it was. Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's really good that I have you guys, so I can ask a lot of questions and have a lot of resources. Just sometimes it doesn't even appear in the final edition. It's just like, okay, now I know what this is about. Will I change anything about what I already wrote? No, but at least now I know, so it's fine. And Julian has been amazing. Like, he knows everything, and he's been absolutely phenomenal. Not
that
only
dude's
does he
brain,
help,
man, Jesus.
not just brain, his heart as well. Because I try not to bother him too much, and sometimes the stuff I ask him is a little bit too, it's a little bit nitpicky.
Yeah.
But I really just want to make sure I get everything right down to the last drop. Yeah. And it's like, does this make sense? What would you suggest? For example, one of the things that I wanted to say was, I don't really translate technique names, because if you translate it, for example, Genki Dama as ball of energy and Kaioken as the strike of the king of worlds, it doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
Yeah.
Not to mention some of those things are already like ingrained into fandom. So I just leave everything in Japanese and then use a translator's note. Mostly it's for two reasons. One, because I want to prove to people that I'm not translating this just out of, laziness. I actually know how to translate this. It's like, if you want a translation, here it is. Second of all, because I think it's fun as a creative exercise to try to think of creative names for attack names. I mean, my favorite one so far was, again, volume that just came out. It's in volume 5 when Jackie Chun uses the hypnosis technique on Goku, where he says like Yoiko Ming Ming Ken, which it's like literally good boys and girls go to sleep. So I actually put a translator's note saying like, techniques names translate to good little boys and girls go nappy nap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was still the more comical part of the series right at the beginning. So it's like, you know what? Let's just, make it a little bit funny.
Yeah. What benefit does Kanzenshuu get from you doing this?
Well, first of all, I'm actually about to retranslate the Q&A with Akira Toriyama. I still haven't gotten around to do it yet, but since I got to translate it like completely from scratch from Portuguese, I can actually, since the translation is a little bit old, I actually asked Julian, since I'm actually retranslating this, do you want me to give a second pass? He's like, no, it's fine. I translated that long ago, and you're now much better in Japanese than I was back then.
Yeah.
And I asked you, like, hey, Julian said this. You're cool with it, and you said you're cool. I'm cool with it. So
yeah,
that's the one reason I think. Off the top of my head, there's probably more, but I cannot quite recall them.
Yeah, that's a direct one. Otherwise, it's just, more translation is always better. More experience is always better. Really diving into the series. That's all just, personal and professional growth there too. But yeah, just getting another pass on like an ancient Julian translation, not a bad thing.
It again, it's more experience. Right now, work even barely seems like work because, oh no, I have to translate Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
The horror.
Yeah. What a terrible day.
Exactly. Woe is me. I'm looking at your background, like with the giant vinyl cover of Dr. Slump, and when Akira Toriyama passed away, I actually called my editor in chief, just to say, would you mind if I published an epitaph, a eulogy for Akira Toriyama? Since, the first volume hasn't even been published yet, but it's the 40th anniversary of the series. Mm-hmm. And sadly also the year that the original author passed away. So I really want to do a eulogy for Akira Toriyama. You don't even need to pay me. I will do this like pro bono. Just let me do it. And she even said, you can totally do it, and I will even pay you for it. I've actually been seeing a lot of stuff about him recently. It's like, yeah, you should have seen Twitter. It took me forever just to see all of the tributes on Twitter that day.
Yeah.
And it said, oh yeah, and she said, yeah, I've seen a lot of what he did, like series like Dr. Slump, and I didn't even let her finish the sentence because I said, give it to me.
Yeah, Dr. Slump, who's getting that one? Yeah, I know. You always say that Dr. Slump is a series you just like devoured when you read it.
Oh my God. It's I mean, I know it's not for everyone because some people like Dragon Ball more for the fights and the action and the seriousness.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Dragon Ball in its entirety. I like the fights and the action and the seriousness, but I also like the goofy gags. And Dr. Slump is just like pure undiluted goofy gags. It's like, I laugh my ass off every time I read it.
It's really good. All right. Before we get out of here, because I've taken an hour of your time, I know it's late for you. Just give us the lowdown and give us all the details. What is it? Where is it? How much does it cost? How can you get it? Obviously, it's only in Portugal. So, I mean, my fellow Americans, we have a lot of problems right now.
Yeah.
Direct access to a good Dragon Ball translation. No, I don't want to say good, because I think the Viz translation is a better product than a lot of people give it credit for these days. Obviously, there are things we would do, but anyway, yeah, give us all the details.
So basically, you have 2 3-in-1 volumes out right now. You can get it at any bookstore in Portugal. Like, for example, you can have Fnac, you can have Bertrand, you can have Wook. There's a lot of places you can get it. You can also get it, of course, from the original publisher, which is De Vir. And yeah, I work my ass on it. It's about damn time Dragon Ball got the respect it deserves, especially since the first volume was actually published in the 40th anniversary of the series.
What's the release cadence like? You mentioned you have 2 out, so how often is it coming out?
About every 3 to 4 months. So it's about 1 volume per month.
Well, congratulations. It's a wonderful to get such an incredible series, but to know that it's in such capable hands at the same time is a wonderful thing. So,
I mean, I told you before that whenever when my publisher actually told me I was getting the job, I screamed for a few seconds and I went back to the phone call. Yeah. But when the phone call ended, I screamed so much in just pure, savage, raw joy that I actually got myself sick for a week because I screamed so much. I mean, my neighbors probably hated me that day, but I was just so gosh darn happy that I couldn't possibly care any less.
Before we get out of here, I have trivia for you.
Oh, okay.
I didn't prepare it, unfortunately. I really should have. So I'm doing this off the top of my head. I'm really going to put you out of your element because this is American stuff. What is the full Christian name of this action figure that I'm holding up to you right now?
It's probably not Bobblehead Krillin.
No. Folks may know the sound effect.
Kicking Action Krillin.
Oh, you are really close. You got 2 of the 3 words here.
So if it's kicking action, it's like kicking motion Krillin.
I'm gonna give you 2/3 of a point. It is fast kicking Krillin.
Fast kicking Krillin. Okay.
Yep. All right,
Okay.
the next one, hold on, I got to grab something. I'm going to ultimately have 3 questions for you, the same way that you would deliver on We Got a Podcast. Okay. I am holding up the first American soundtrack for Dragon Ball Z, and I'm holding my hand over the bottom.
Yeah.
Do you know/remember who is, let's say credited with the score, the musical score to the Saban Ocean era of Dragon Ball Z?
I'm assuming it's not Bruce Faulkner.
No, this is pre-Faulkner Productions.
Oof. I have no clue.
Okay, it's Shuki Levy, buddy.
Shuki Levy.
With
Didn't
Saban.
he work on Power Rangers?
Yes, this is going to be a gimme. I'm holding, it better be, you better get this right. I'm holding up the subtitled VHS release from Pioneer of Dragon Ball Z Movie 1 from 1997. What is the American title of this movie?
Dead Zone?
It is Dead Zone. Yes. All right. There you go. All right. So
that was a gimme.
1 2/3 points. Congratulations on your trivia segment. You did fantastic. What was it like to have the tables turned on you?
First of all, terrifying. Second of all, exciting. So
right,
very Goku-esque.
You want to just tell people what you do every other week? Why am I turning trivia on you here?
So yeah, I'm besides being the official Portuguese translator of Dragon Ball and the contributor to the Kanzenshuu of translations, even though my cadence isn't as good as I wish it would be, I'm actually finishing up that Akio Yoko interview.
Okay,
I'm missing like 1 paragraph.
Okay.
I also am the trivia deity for We Got a Podcast, which is the only other Dragon Ball podcast you should be caring about. Well, not maybe the only one. The other one, it's probably the only other one I know of.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
But yeah, I also, Dragon Ball has many gods. They were missing a trivia god, so I'm working as a trivia god for We Got a Podcast. I try to at least do 3 every single fortnight, because they actually publish fortnightly. But, as you told me yourself, sometimes I do make a little mishap every now and then. I'm still, mulling over that Dragon Ball Z V2 with Kula and Kuriza that you told me. Yes. But I will try to be more careful, so I get absolutely no pushbacks.
That's right.
In that regard.
Look, I have my editorial duty. I take it seriously. All right. We have been talking with our buddy Zénpai from Portugal, doing the official new Portuguese translation of the Dragon Ball manga coming out officially. What an incredible honor. I know you take it seriously. I know you take it personally. So thank you for all you do for Dragon Ball fandom, for us, and for all the fans, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally my pleasure. And it's not even hyperbole. It's literally my pleasure.
Thank you, as always, to our buddy Zénpai there. As I'm recording this, him and I have been chatting about some other things. We're really focusing, if you've been following me on Blue Sky a little bit, maybe with some of the Weekly Shonen Jump issues I've been getting, I'm really focusing on blurbs. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but stay with me here. There's a lot of stuff that either didn't make it to, let's say, the Tankobon release, things like, we've talked about this a few times, but the Design Me a New Dogi contest. But there's something earlier in the series too, and I was just about to get it ready to put on the site, and I was like, wait, where did it first come from? And I realized, well, I don't have that issue. I don't know what issue that's in. I gotta buy some more Jump issues. So this is usually how it goes with projects and entries. I'm just about ready to post, like, wait a minute, I gotta take a step back. Do I have the thing that references the thing? I don't. Well, I got to get that thing that references the thing. So you're just going to have to stay tuned on that one. In my cart right now, I have, let's see, I've ordered 4 issues. I got a snipe bid on another one. There are a couple that I'm like, why is this one so expensive? Oh boy. Okay. The problem with getting old Jump issues, this could be an entirely separate conversation. I maybe have to have this at some point. Been casually watching, listening to on the side. Y'all know Mary, my wife. Do I no, I'm not doing the board. Big into the X-Men franchise of comics. And what's really interesting is following along with her collection and videos and reports and stuff. The American side of comics is expensive comics are always like first appearance of blank. So something we were looking at is like the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. I think I'm getting this right. It's like it's actually like a shadow and maybe a line of dialogue, but you don't see his face. So it's like technical first appearance, and then there's actual first appearance. And then both of those issues are expensive for kind of like those different reasons. Makes me think a little bit about like the technical first appearance of Vegeta in the DBZ TV series is actually like little small, and in the like flashback kind of scene where Raditz is explaining the science, like we actually see him there beforehand, before we actually see him at the end of episode 5 when him and Nappa are eating the bug people. Of course, that's different from the manga, but anyway, it makes me think a lot about as I pick up these old Jump issues. There's really none of that when it comes to this is like the first appearance of Oolong. There's no reverence for that in terms of price of an issue, even for something like first issue of Vegeta or first issue of Frieza. There's nothing there. What makes issues expensive is debut chapter of a series and or one shot by an artist. Give you a couple examples here. As I was doing some of the GT promotional research, which is an ever in process feature that I promise will hit the site at some point in the next decade. As I was grabbing all of the issues from kind of the end of 1995, I'm going to turn my head so I can read the issue number here a little bit. So we go, let's see, I've got 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 49, 50, 51, 52. Issue 48, I can't remember. I want to say there was like an Iraqi one shot or something in that issue, or is the debut chapter of some other, no, what is it? I think it was, maybe it's a Slam Dunk special. It's 5th anniversary of Slam Dunk, Slam Dunk, I think it is. And that's the final chapter of something called Taikiryu Hoshi. Oh, Taikiryu Hoshi is a Tetsuo Hara manga. Okay, so that makes some sense there too. So it's just like there's a couple little things about that issue that made it. So the others were like, $10, $8, $15. Like, okay, I can get all these $80 for this issue. Like, okay, I think I've gotten all the stuff I need in the surrounding issues. And I think maybe I confirmed like there wasn't a J-Wing column in that particular issue because I was able to confirm the numbers of the J-Wing columns before and after. So it's like I wasn't missing because it's not in every issue. So you can kind of figure it out. It's like, okay, I think I can skip this issue and rest assured I got everything I want. But like, that's the stuff that makes it interesting collecting the old Weekly Jump issues. It's not like, first appearance of Zarbon is $80. It's like, it doesn't matter that you're following the magazine for a different series entirely, and it's just some incidental chapter you want to collect. It happens to be the debut chapter of insert manga series here. And then chapter 2 is totally fine. Chapter 3 is totally fine. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now. I'm going some early chapters of Dragon Ball right now. I'm just trying to track down a little extra thing I want to be able to reference for sure there. Maybe that's a little behind the scenes of what we got going on there on site. Little Zénpai involvement, little Mike involvement. Of course, Julian research, background, historical context, always looming over all of it. All of his notes over the years just help so much as we do this stuff. So I think I'm going to leave it there. This was the last topic I specifically previewed in a Patreon post a while back. Not to say I don't know what the upcoming topics on the podcast are going to be, but they're going to be a surprise to you. So stay tuned. We're going to try to stick with the bi-weekly schedule for the foreseeable future here. Should be good on that. In terms of other scheduling stuff, if y'all follow along with our Saturday night gaming streams, we've been off for a couple of weeks. As you listen to this, there was just a stream the previous evening. I don't know what it was because we don't know who's going to show up and what game we're going to play tonight. However, next week is Switch 2 launch. We should be on, for the majority of us, switching over to Mario Kart World. So come on over, tune in. Love to have you chat with us while we duke it out in the open world racing realm. I don't know who could say. That's twitch.tv/VegettoEX or of course, grabyournearest.com. The aforementioned patreon.com/Kanzenshuu. It helps us keep the lights on every month. Makes it easy for me to say, oh, I need to go buy a bunch of jumps. I don't need to worry about the site. It'll be there. Thank you much, everyone. Beyond that, www.kanzenshuu.com. That is kanzenshuu.com, the central repository for all things from the official Kanzenshuu. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.